Okay, so we're recording. Hi, ambassadors. Welcome to Ambassador Spotlight number 2. Today we have Kelly Terwilliger with us. She is an IHP and a certified personal trainer. But before I ramble on, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit more and share your qualifications with the community.
Yes, thanks, Rick. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
I am Kelly Terwilliger. I'm a certified personal trainer, also a faster way to fat loss coach, IHP 1, working towards IHP 2. I've also done the gut, thyroid, and hormone electives through Dr. Cabral. Um, I did say I was a certified personal trainer. I've been in the industry for a very, very long time. Basically, I grew up literally in a gym. My dad still has the gym to this day in his basement. So I've grown up around fitness, but what I've struggled with is nutrition. And I guess we'll get into that here in a little bit about kind of the progression of everything. But I live here in DFW, Frisco, Texas, outside of DFW. And my past, I used to operate fitness franchises. And my husband, his career was on the up and up. So we had to relocate. And I decided to take what I knew with business building and just, health and wellness and bring it into the online space. And that was actually 8 years ago. So it was right whenever I had my son. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, wow. So you really just jumped into it here. You gave me a lot of background about yourself. I was going to ask you how did you become interested in becoming an integrative health practitioner specifically? I know you kind of touched upon it. I guess with the missing link being nutrition, but I don't know if there's any more detail you want to give on that or.
Yeah. So I was really good at fitness, obviously. Like I said, grew up in my dad's gym. So that was something I just knew exercise and I knew that was part of life. But what wasn't a piece of my life for a very, very long time was the nutrition piece. And what happened to me was I had fertility issues early on. I didn't know I was in menopause. And my husband and I were trying to get pregnant, and all of a sudden they say, Kelly, you're in menopause and you have to see a fertility specialist. You probably have to get donor egg, and like all of this stuff was kind of thrown at me in my early 30s. I'm like, how am I in menopause in my early 30s? What's going on? So I did go through all of the fertility that they had suggested. And but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I want to know the root cause. Like what happened that I went into menopause at an early age. But obviously I did get pregnant through fertility. I did have my son. So it was something I couldn't learn right then, but I knew once life settled, we ended up moving from Cincinnati, Ohio to Houston. I knew once life settled, that was something I wanted to dig a little bit deeper on. And I just started studying Sarah Gottfried at the time, Mark Hyman, and I started kind of getting educated through them. And then I was doing online personal training because I had to leave my fitness franchise. So I was doing online personal training, and I ended up becoming a faster way to fat loss coach in 2018. And I met Dr. Cabral in 2019 at one of the conferences. And I'm like, wait a second, he's got something that I'm navigating towards and I want to learn more about. So I read his book. I started listening to the podcast, kind of like what all of our story, I'm sure, is. Like, we read the book, listened to the podcast, got engaged, and said, this is the direction I need to go. And in 2020, the world shuts down, and I just decided, hey, this is the time I'm going to launch into this IHP 1. I have no clue what I'm getting myself into, but I'm going to become IHP 1 certified. Like I said, am currently working towards IHP 2. And because I'm seeing a need for, I already understand IHP 1. I want to learn how to read the labs and kind of go that route. So that's kind of the quick version.
Yeah, that's amazing, and a lot of really interesting background in there. Obviously, like the early menopause is very atypical, so that's definitely like not an aha moment, but a moment where you're like, maybe I want to dig into why this is happening, because I obviously I'm a male, it wouldn't happen to me, but if something of that magnitude had happened to me, it may lead me to kind of digging in deeper and saying, why did it happen? All right, it happened, but now why? So that's interesting. And that's why I think these are great to do, because I think that's probably something a lot of people didn't know. And that's it's a very relatable thing, I think, for a lot of people, not necessarily the specific issue, but I think a lot of people have an issue that compels them to dig deeper. You did mention, or you touched on your faster way to fat loss
Mhm,
experience, and I just want to bring it in here real quick because I know there's a lot of ambassadors still that are affiliated with it. So you said that you learned about Dr. Cabral at a conference that was through Faster Way.
mhm.
Was there any other touch point on that, or is that was kind of the path in? And that's just interesting to me, and I think it might be interesting to the community because I know there's others affiliated with that program.
Right, right. No, that was my in, and that's just where I started, like I said, reading the book, listening to the podcast, and I also realized at that point, the Faster Way is a great foundational program,
Mhm.
especially with how the setup is. And it was great for me to launch my business because the back end systems were there, the payment processors, the lead pages, the lead magnets, and all of that great stuff. Um, so from a business perspective, that is where I launched because it was easy, and I still believe in the program,
Right.
and a whole food approach is going to naturally work for everybody's benefit, partner that with workouts. So why I became IHP and why I've kind of dove into that as my next level is there comes a point where, women, we need more. There might, and especially in my case being postmenopausal, I practice a whole food approach as best as I can. I do, my daily workouts, but we need to customize some strategies based on maybe what their imbalances are or where their deficiencies are. And that's what I found in my own journey, that's what I needed. So that's why I was like, okay, once I get them into a whole food approach plan and they understand that and they're still having issues, or maybe they're having different issues or whatever, then I need to learn how to help them with that. So that's kind of my trajectory, and it's still how my business model is set up to this day. So it works.
Yeah, no, that definitely seems like a very natural extension because there's a lot of overlap between the whole food diet. I think that's a lot of what Dr. Cabral recommends anyway.
Mhm.
But in addition to that, um, I think part of our philosophy is that it's even eating the perfect diet, it's hard to get everything that your body needs. And most of the time you can't eat a perfect diet because life gets in the way, and whether you're traveling or you don't have access to local, you know, organic farm grown foods or whatever it may be. It's difficult. So that's where supplementation comes in. And then obviously if you have any kind of deficiency or you have some sort of issue that you need to get to the root cause of, then supplementation becomes important in
Mhm.
attending to that too. Obviously, I don't have to tell you, but it's
Right.
that I really do see a natural progression there, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, for your health coaching, and you do health coaching, correct? Now,
Can I do
okay,
that? Yes.
yeah, just wanted to make sure. So, for your health coaching business, what was the most important first step? Would you say when you started to get into health coaching?
So I find that most women just don't know where to start. They're not feeling well. They're just kind of, I call it flailing, right? They don't really know what direction to take. They're reading everything, and they're especially scrolling Instagram, and every influencer is out there saying do this, do this, do this, but they don't know what's right for them. So I absolutely love hopping on a one-on-one call with them. And I do 30-minute consults. I actually charge for my consults. My own personal preference, I know a lot of people don't, but it shows that they are kind of ready to take the next step, because I had a lot of consults that I'd give them a whole plan. I'd spend a whole bunch of time, and they'd walk. So once, and we'd talk through some things like, okay, where are your pitfalls? How's your nutrition? And the first step might be the de-stress protocol, because maybe they're not even doing that, right? Um, if they're already kind of doing that, then I'll look at what's their nutrition like? Are they getting enough protein for their specific body and their goals and their lifestyle and things like that? Are they eating enough fiber? I mean, I know we practice a whole food approach and we focus on vegetables and fruits and things, but are we getting enough specifically for their needs?
Yeah.
So I customize it. And when I do my consult review, I'll say, I'm going to email you with with an action plan, and I put together sometimes two, sometimes three, like here's where, because I never want to tell somebody what to do. I want to obviously leave it in their hands, right?
Yeah.
And I'll say, here's suggestion one, here's suggestion two, and here's suggestion three. And suggestion one could be the detox, or it could be the de-stress protocol, or it could be the fast away plan, wherever they are in life, right? Second phase is maybe add these supplements. These are, let's see if this will maybe support you. Third is let's run the big five or run some kind of labs
Hmm.
to see where your deficiencies are, where the imbalances are. And kind of, I love the big fives because, and I think we all can agree, it shows a really big picture. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's
I
very
have clients,
comprehensive.
yeah, I have clients that just want to run one for financial reasons, and it's totally fine. Like I want to meet them where they're at, but I'm like, we can get the big five. We can really tackle something here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I have everything set up with my clients, and 9 times out of 10, I would say probably most of my clients come back and they're like, this is working, or you know what, this didn't feel right, or let's do more of this, and they just keep, I let them keep the line of communication open via email.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's super interesting, and that very personalized approach to start is probably a good entry point for your clients because everybody's an individual, you know. So, and I don't think that's necessarily atypical. I think that's a lot of IHPs do that as well. But it's definitely important instead of, you know, just jumping in like, oh, you know, start testing just to talk about them, you know, kind of see where they think their pitfalls may be, because that could be very telling. It may not even be right, but just to see where they're coming from and what their mindset is can be telling, I guess, as well,
Mhm.
right?
Right. And when I ask them what they've eaten the last 3 days and they stutter, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, or they just have different, they have a, I don't want to say a warped view, but just a different view of, oh yeah, I'm definitely eating enough vegetables. And then when they, you know, talk about it, it's like very obviously not enough, you know, and it's not like they were being deceitful. It's just people don't realize, or, you know, you tend to overestimate, or, you know, it's
Mhm.
just human nature.
And I was that person. I did not understand nutrition. I ran fitness franchises and I knew nothing about nutrition. I could tell you about
Mhm.
exercise all day long, but that made a great point. Like a lot of my women, we think we're eating healthy, but
Right.
we're really not. And that's why, that's one thing IHP1 has definitely taught me is that, you know, looking at your plate and looking at different things and making sure you're getting your fiber in and the micronutrients that we all need along with your macronutrients. So,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I just feel like in society and like the zeitgeist, there's been so much misinformation about what's healthy. And I think maybe we're getting a little bit better now, but you know, growing up with the food pyramid and everything, it was, I remember the food pyramid in school, and I don't know, that's kind of laughable now, parts of
right,
it at least.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
but just what, let me tell me, going back to when you started your business, what were some initial trepidations about starting it? And it could be when you were doing Faster Way, because I know you said you started your business then. But it's applicable to anyone starting a business, even as an IHP, as an ambassador right now.
Yeah,
And how did you overcome them, I should say, too, as a part two to that?
my biggest thing, and I heard this, okay, before I get to that story, my biggest thing was not being good enough. And I have, especially putting myself out there on social media or sending out emails. Am I misspelling something? Am I saying something wrong? Am I interpreting something that somebody's going to maybe lash back out at me, or what's she talking about? Like, I will tell you, for probably 4 or 5 years, I had somebody proofing all of my emails and my social media posts because I felt like
Wow.
I couldn't post it. So I had
Yeah.
that I knew it all in here and I could talk it, but I couldn't write it, right? So the not feeling like I, you know, was ready to be where I was at was something I had to overcome. And finally, it was one of Dr. Kerbal's podcasts. I don't know when it was, within the last couple of years, and he was like, you have, even if it's not perfect, you just have to do it. And I was like, why am I trying this perfection thing? Let me just do this. I call it do it dirty. Like, just messy, go, like just do it, and whatever the outcome is the outcome. And I end up, I think people resonate with that because i I'm just real. I'm not perfect in anything. So I mean, there's things, I'll look at my Instagram post sometimes, I'm like, spelled that wrong, but I just let it, I keep it, because it's like, you know what, I want them to know that it's the real me and we all have errors. So yeah, my biggest thing was having to overcome my own self-doubt. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I mean, that's super common, like imposter syndrome and everything. I think that's a huge barrier for a lot of us in all aspects of life, and then specifically in health coaching and being an IHP.
right, right. The other thing too I had to overcome a lot is giving up some control. I had to hire a team, and that I don't know what I do without them right now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And there's things that I still kind of hold on to, but delegating and being okay delegating, because what I always have to sit down and say to myself is, why am I here? What is my purpose? To sit here and create a lead magnet, to create an email sales funnel, to things that I can do, and I can save a lot of money doing it, but I need to delegate that because my number one thing is to be on camera with my client.
Right,
I want
right.
the person, I want to make sure that I'm there for them. And if I'm sitting here in tech mode building things, then I show up pretty flat to my clients. So,
Yeah, and that's not what everyone can do. So most
right.
people can sit there and read online and figure out how to create an email funnel, I think. But
Yeah.
not everybody, I think, can get one-on-one with a client and give them that personalized attention and whatnot. So yeah, definitely makes sense to focus on that aspect. That's where your bread and butter really comes in, I think, right?
Right. And I
Um,
don't show up very well on Instagram, like my personality. Sometimes it'll show through and people,
mhm.
will be like, yes, your personality comes through, but I show up better live. And I know that. So knowing where my strength is, and I have tapped into that now. So
Gotcha. And to be honest, I think in the last couple minutes you've touched on some of the, and maybe this is the answer that you've already said, but what's one thing that you know now that would have been helpful when you started? I would assume some of that like imposter syndrome stuff probably qualifies, but if there's
yeah,
anything else you can add onto it.
just do it messy
Yeah.
and just go, and there were times where I'd just sit there and close my eyes and click send.
Okay. Yeah.
Literally, like, because yeah, but and I don't know it all, and I'm very good at saying, you know what, let me find the answer. And there's so many people here in the IHP community, Equal Life community, that we kind of tag team one another and we
Mhm.
support. I mean, you were just saying, it's just like we all are a community, and that's the biggest thing that I love about this community, is because we're all kind of together and supporting one another. If we have a challenging client, we're kind of working together on that client. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that's what this part of what this is too, is you being willing and open to sharing some of what's made you successful to others. And there's in you're running a business, right? And in business, it's not always the the first thing people want to do is get on camera and be like, well, this is what I'm doing to make my business successful, because you have competition and stuff. But this is such a underserved space, I think, in
mhm,
that I think if anything, there needs to be more of this and more of helping people than less, right?
mhm.
And then kind of going off of that business theme, I know your primary objective is to help your clients and develop your relationships with your clients, but it needs to be financially viable, right? I mean, it's not a charity. So how do you balance the fact that, maybe you're trying to do right by your clients, first and foremost, but make sure that you are financially viable and it makes sense financially for you to continue to do what you do on a daily basis.
Right. That's why I like to give them 2 to 3 options. I give them like the lower end option, working on the de-stress protocol. That's free, right?
Mhm.
Focus on diet, focus on activity, stress, sleep, all of that. So I kind of give them tiers, and if they want to go that route because of finances and that's what they do, I'll also offer them supplements that I think that suggest. And then, like I said, jump into the big five, or if they can't afford that, I'll say, then I definitely need you to run this when you're able to. So,
Yeah.
um, but kind of going off of that, especially, a lot of people want free health advice. So I
Right.
do have very clear boundaries. If I do get a question from a non-client, send me an email, or I'll immediately send them my call link and say, let's hop on a 30-minute consult. And I explain to them what the 30-minute gets you and why I don't just throw out answers anymore, because that's deserving to them, because I'm really not understanding what their background is. just over a quick email or just over a quick IG message, you know?
Yeah, and it's devaluing to your work too.
Right, right. I mean,
And a lot of
we
people
spend a lot of
don't.
money on this.
Yeah, and a lot of people feel awkward about that,
Hmm.
and it's understandable why, but it's one of those it's one of those struggles that I continue to see with IHPs and ambassadors saying, I want to charge, but I feel weird charging. And even as far as earning commissions, they feel funny about earning commissions, but that's part of the financial model, hopefully, for most ambassadors. And kind of going off of that, how do you utilize your ambassador commissions to kind of supplement your business? So I know you said you charge for consults, which I think is great, and I think a lot of people either already do or should be doing, because that's your biggest asset, is your knowledge and your time spent with them. But obviously the other portion of it is the ambassador commissions, and just kind of how do you incorporate that into your model?
Yeah. So the ambassador commissions, right now, I just have it set up where if I have a client that needs to get a lot of supplements, that's whenever I'll say, hey, I'll cover this and go ahead and get the rest or whatever. I kind of use that as my refeed, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And if I need to do a lab that I want to learn more about, or if I want to, like I said, pass it off to somebody else, then that's kind of where I'm at with the commissions right now. They are getting bigger, so I'm probably not going to be, at some point it's going to be an income for me, but
Yeah,
right now it's kind of just a refeed and kind of like bonus money into whatever, if a client is struggling with something, or you know I don't want somebody to say, I can't do it because I can't afford it,
yeah.
you know? So,
Yeah,
uh,
no, that's great, and that's super interesting, because not there's a lot of different ways to approach it, and that's why I always want to ask that question, because some people say, that's how I give consults for free, but the commissions are super important, and or the opposite, I charge for consults, and then the commissions are kind of extra, and I kind of go back and forth, and then some folks order on behalf of their clients, others let their clients order for themselves. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Um, how do you broach that topic with your clients about the fact that you earn commissions on your recommendations? Because I know that sometimes invites some skepticism as to, like, oh, well, she's just telling me to do it to make some money, or, you know.
mhm. Yeah, I'm pretty open. I mean, with all of my clients, I'll just say, hey, this is, and especially if we have a good sale, I'll hop on live with my team and say, hey guys, I use this X, Y, and
Mhm.
Z, whatever that sale is, every single day. I'm not saying you have to buy it. I'm not saying that you should buy it. I'm just saying this is literally my morning routine, and I'll show them. Kind of like Dr. Cabral, and I love that he says this. It doesn't like, if you want to purchase another product, go ahead, just make sure it's of equal value.
Right.
I do that same thing. I'm like, if you can find something that is along these lines, that's cheaper, go right ahead. Like, you're not hurting my feelings whatsoever. Which is why I charge for consults. So it's one of those things where, they know I'm in the business to also run a business, and that's kind
Yeah.
of, it all kind of is fluid. I look at it as, you go to the restaurant and they're making commission,
Sure.
or
Yeah.
tips, and you're paying them to eat their food, and I look at it as I am that. So, and for me to even get my upper level certifications, I wouldn't have been able to do level 2 and BME if it wasn't for my equal life commissions, where my business is right now with all of my clients, so I'm pretty open with that too. Like, hey guys, this, my husband doesn't see a lot of this. This is all kind of recirculating,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's because I want to keep learning and growing and giving back. And if there's a family in need, it's just where I am with it.
Yeah. No, it's always better to be open up front. That's always what I tell ambassadors. I'm like, don't avoid the subject, because you're providing a service, and you could say that's part of how I make my money, and it's not the only way, but it is part of it, and it's a little bit of a supplement. And like you said, you made the analogy about tipping waitresses and stuff. It's similar in that sense, and people don't hesitate to leave a tip when they go out to eat, so it's also like kind of retraining the mindset, I think, of people, and how they view certain services. um I I follow you on social media on a couple platforms, and I see that you're pretty active as far as like posting stories or reels or whatnot. Can you describe kind of that process, like how you leverage social media to grow and be successful, and also like maybe give an example of like a campaign that you did that was successful? I know you mentioned you do detoxes sometimes.
Mhm. Detoxes, and I do a
Yeah.
6 week with Faster Way. So
Okay,
um,
cool.
my Instagram handle is Kelly_T_wellness if anyone wants to follow. But I do just a day in the life. And there are times where I don't show up on my stories because, life is busy, but I do try and post at least 4 to 5 times a week. Try and show up every day in my stories. Hey, here's my morning smoothie. If you see my morning smoothie again, you guys are, I mean, everybody's like, I seen the morning smoothie, but repetition, right?
Yeah,
Repetition. And then they're finally like, oh my gosh, I see you drink this every morning. Can you tell me about it? And that's been my foundation with social media, just showing up, and even when I feel like I don't have anything to say, or maybe I'm sweaty from a workout, people still want to see the real you.
yeah,
So
yeah. No, and I think that's actually a really good point, because I think it lends more credence to when you make these recommendations and you say, okay, do this every day. Well, if you're
mhm,
putting yourself out there and showing that you're doing it every day, it's like, okay, she actually does do it every day, and maybe I should, because instead of just saying you do, and then you do something else or you don't do it at all.
right.
So it's kind of like social proof, which is interesting. Um, what's the thing that you appreciate the most about like the opportunity to be an ambassador, and maybe like a perk that you enjoy the most?
I love the community and I
Yeah.
love the support. I will tell you, your support has been great.
Oh,
Everybody
thank you.
else's support. Yes. When I was new, I remember some of those emails like, help me.
Yeah.
But just the community has been fabulous. Nobody's been like, what is this girl doing? It's been, hey, let's all pull together and help the team. So I went to conference last year. I'm so excited to go to conference
Yeah.
again. That actually lit my fire. So that was whenever I was like, this is where I needed to be. This is where I want to be. Cause I didn't really start promoting things until last year at this time. And
Hmm.
when I saw I was on a leaderboard and then got
Yeah.
into all that stuff, I was
And
like,
correct me if I'm wrong, but you won the raffle to go last year, right? You were one
I
of the
did.
five. Yeah, so that's awesome, because I mean, you did phenomenal, especially from when you started, and to even
Right.
get into that tier to be eligible. But for anyone who's doesn't know or forgot, it's the top 10 that gets the automatic paid trip to the conference. It's the Reimagining Health Summit. Last year it was IHP Live. But then anyone who's earned $5,000 or more, they're in a raffle to win. So, and the point being is that gives people an opportunity to go that maybe, like maybe you would have made it to the top 10 if you had started earlier, but everyone's coming in at different times, and it just gives more people the opportunity. So that's awesome. And it sounds like it was a good experience.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And then what single piece of advice would you give someone starting off as an ambassador today? And I know maybe this might be repetitive, some of
Mhm.
the stuff that you touched on, but if there's anything else you want to add.
I would say kind of what I talked about, just go after it. You don't have to know all the things.
Mhm.
You don't have to know who you're speaking to yet. That all comes with time. I mean, I didn't know who my audience was until 2 or 3 years later, and just keep doing things. Show up, if you're on social media, show up every single day, your smoothie or your lunch or your kids or whatever it is. People want to get to know and like and trust you. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And I wish I took that advice for myself years ago when I launched, because I think I would have even been even farther. But
Sure.
we all have progression.
Yeah. Yep.
But and lean on the community. Like I saw something this morning, and I don't know if it was IHP or the Equal Life, but someone's struggling to get started, and there's a whole slew of everybody just helping.
Mhm.
And just ask if you're struggling with social media or email funnels or lead magnets or getting your business just off the ground, getting your first customer. Just ask how people are doing it. We're all there to help. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so true. And I almost never see any kind of negative feedback when somebody asks the community. It's always positive. It's always, trying to build each other up. It's never,
mhm.
yeah, I just don't see that. And that's a community we want to foster. And it's nice that that's how it manifests too.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so anything else you want to share with the community, or any closing thoughts? This was
No,
awesome.
I just thank you very much for your time. And I'm so excited to see
Sure.
everybody in October. And um, yeah, I know it's going to be even bigger and better. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll see you in October, Kelly, and I appreciate you coming on here. It's really great. I think it's going to be super valuable for all the ambassadors. So thank you.
Yeah. If anybody needs anything, Kelly_T_wellness, I'm always in my DMs. So
Sounds good.
happy
Thanks,
to help.
Kelly.
All right. Bye, Rick. Thanks.
Bye.